Hello and welcome to the Dream Team Professor podcast. My name is Scott, and in this episode, we're going to be doing an end of season recap because last night we had the Champions League final with City completing the treble, and that was the last game of the Sun Dream Team season. So, in this episode, I'm just going to be doing a quick team update to show you how my best teams got on and to share with you my overall rank as well. So we'll start off then, and I'll start with game week 35 actually, and I'll brush over this quite quickly. But I didn't have an episode for game week 35 as I was away on holiday. Didn't have the dedication, I'm afraid, to do a podcast while on holiday. So I started the week with David De Gea in goal, who got me 11 points. Akanji got me 5 points. Trent Alexander-Arnold got a -1. John Stones got me 5. Bruno Fernandes got me 16. De Bruyne got 0 points that week. Mahrez got 3 points and Foden finished with 13 points. And then up front, I had Salah, Kane and Haaland. Salah got me 2 points, Kane got me 8 and Haaland got me 2 points that game week. So I finished up on 64 points and actually had my highest rank of the season with 262nd. And previously going into game week 35, I was 385th. So quite a big gain there and things were looking up. Until I decided I was going to make my last 4 remaining transfers. So going into game week 36, you may know that there was a few teams. So game week 36 was a longer game week where they brought the Champions League final, Europa League conference final and the FA Cup final into game week 36. So it was an extra long game week, which did throw quite a lot of people off. And I wanted to really target those cup final games with Man City players who would potentially have a 3-for-1 or a 2-for-1 over some other players that only played in the Premier League. So for example, Mohamed Salah for Liverpool, he only had 1 game in game week 36, whereas Alvarez, for example, or any other City player had a potential to play in 3 games. So that was my thinking really. So 3 fixtures for City, and then Liverpool and Spurs would have 1 fixture, United would have 2 fixtures. So that was my mindset going into these final few games, just to try and maximise these cup final fixtures, get a few games, and even the players that were sort of on the fringe of Man City, you kind of had in your mind that the cup final team would be pretty nailed on. You could predict the cup final team pretty much. But players like Mahrez or Foden on the last game of the season, I did think that they could hit big numbers. So the transfers that I made was Mohamed Salah out, Salah for Alvarez. I thought Alvarez would probably start the final Premier League game of the season, which he did. And then I thought he might get some minutes in the cup finals, was the thinking there. Bruno Fernandes. This was a difficult one, actually. So Bruno Fernandes was on really good form and continued his really good form. But I was going to take him out for Gundogan, who would probably start 2 of the 3 fixtures. And in my head, with Bruno Fernandes having 2 games left, I kind of thought that they would rest Bruno Fernandes for that final Premier League game of the season. And then they would play him for the cup final against City, where I kind of thought he probably wouldn't do very well. Which then also backfired because Bruno Fernandes went on to start the last Premier League game of the season and the final as well and did pretty well. But I'll come on to that. So I took him out for Gundogan, who actually did do pretty well as well. The other move I made was Trent Alexander-Arnold with just the 1 fixture. And I took him out for Kyle Walker, which I was pretty happy doing that with Kyle Walker being in that main starting lineup most of the time. And then the final move that I was going to make was, it was going to actually be Harry Kane to Ruben Diaz, changing the formation. But actually right late on towards the end of the deadline for game week 35, I found out Marcus Rashford was going to be starting that final game. So I went and took Diaz out and I did a straight swap from Harry Kane to Marcus Rashford, which looked like a good move on paper in my opinion. But we'll show how that ended up in a minute. So after making the changes, this is how my team looked going into game week 36. I had David De Gea in goal. I had a full back line of Manchester City with Akanji, Walker and Stones, all regular starters. I had Gundogan, De Bruyne, Mahrez and Foden. Gundogan and De Bruyne, usual starters, but Mahrez and Foden kind of knew they weren't going to get picked for the final games, but I didn't want to take them out and waste a transfer. They had Brentford on the final game of the Premier League season, so I thought they'd probably score some points in that one. And then hopefully come off the bench in some of the cup finals. I did have a feeling that Mahrez actually might have played that Carabao Cup game, but Bernardo got the nod ahead of him for that one. And then I had Alvarez, Haaland and Rashford up front. So this actually scored me 53 points for the game week. But it was pretty tragic in the end. So I risked it all and it did not pay off at all. So I was 262nd at the end of game week 35. This performance got me all the way back down to 350th to end the season. De Gea got me 5 points, Akanji got me 5 points, Walker got me 5 points, and Stones got me 8. Gundogan, he done well, we got 21 points. He really did turn it on for those big games. That cup final, the FA Cup final, he was absolutely brilliant, scoring 2 goals and well, 2 brilliant goals at that as well, with that early volley. De Bruyne got 2 assists in that final as well, so 7 points for De Bruyne. Mahrez got 0 points, so he started the Brentford game, but Man City were pretty poor. That was an absolutely dead game, that Brentford one, and I called that completely wrong with goals flying in every other fixture, but that City game was really quite dead. And then Foden as well, he played in that Brentford fixture, but didn't really produce in that one. Ended up with 3 points for the game week. Alvarez started that Brentford game, but ended up with nothing. Haaland got a -1 across the 3 fixtures, and then Rashford finished with a blank as well across the 3 fixtures. So overall, pretty poor week, and ends up being even poorer when you see how the players that I took out performed. So Alvarez, who I brought in for Salah, Alvarez got me 0 points. Mohamed Salah went on to score 5 points in that final game of the season. Bruno Fernandes, who I took out, went on to score a massive 21 points. He got the star man, I think it was, in that final game of the season against Fulham. I think he chipped the keeper in that one with a lovely goal. 13-pointer there. And then in the cup final as well, a dubious penalty given for a Jack Grealish handball. He put that one away as well. So Bruno Fernandes finished off with a massive 21 points. The only sort of consolation I can have is that Gundogan managed to get 21 points exactly as well. So kind of cancelled each other out there. Trent Alexander-Arnold got me 2 points compared to Walker's 5 points. So Walker not really pulling up any trees there. And a big surprise really that it was left out of the Champions League final. But he did come on to get those clean sheet points at least. But the real big kick in the teeth was Harry Kane. So I brought in Marcus Rashford for that final game of the season against Fulham. And hopefully maybe score against Manchester City in that FA Cup final. He scored a massive 0 points. And Harry Kane went on to score 18 points in the last game of the season against Leeds. I was cringing every time I saw those goals go in. 18 points as well. He'd hit 18 points only on 2 other occasions throughout the season. And that was his highest points tally throughout the season as well. I knew it was a risky move. I thought he might go on to maybe score 1 goal and get an 8-pointer, or maybe at most get the star man and get a 13-pointer. I maybe could have lived with that. And I thought maybe at worst Rashford might get 1 goal or something like that. But it really did go as badly as possible. So overall, I got 26 points out of the moves that I made. Actually, if I had made none of these moves and just kept my team exactly the same, I would have got 46 points. So making 4 transfers, I actually ended up 20 points worse off. So yeah, last big moves of the season, and I absolutely fluffed it. So yeah, real disappointing one there. So I dropped from 262nd down to 330th. But that is still my best ever finish on Sun Dream Team. So I can't be too disappointed. My previous best rank had been 463rd. So a little bit of progress there. Hoping to push on. I think it wouldn't have been so gutting if I hadn't have got that 260 odd the week before. I probably would have taken 330 if you had offered it to me at the start of the season. But the fact I got a taste of being in the 200s did make it a little bit of a kick in the teeth right at the end. But there was 600,000 plus teams on Sun Dream Team this season. Not as many players as that, because some teams can make up. Some players can make up to like 10 teams. But still, I think 350 was a fairly good finish. I'm quite pleased with it. And to check your rank, if you didn't know, because I have had a few people ask me this throughout the season, you just go to Leagues on the app or on the website. You go to Leagues, click on Leaderboard. There's a little checkbox for My Teams, so you can check your team out that way. And one thing I would recommend, take a screenshot of it or write it in your notes, or if you're on Apple, take a screenshot and post that screenshot in your notes just to keep a record of it. Because on like FPL, for example, they keep a running total of your ranks throughout, and it's good to have a little look back and compare how you've done in previous seasons. On Sun Dream Team, they don't do that. When the next Sun Dream Team game comes out and the app updates, that's it, it's wiped. So it's really quite disappointing when that happens. I've been playing Dream Team for such a long time, mostly just playing with friends in mini leagues, and I never thought, I was just playing in mini leagues and I never really looked at the overall ranks. I never really thought to record my overall ranks throughout the years. So yeah, I really wish I'd have done that throughout the years to see how I'd progressed, but the best time to start now is now if you haven't done that before. So I'd recommend just doing that, and you can keep an eye on how you've progressed throughout the seasons. So yeah, that's a little tip for you. I'll do it sooner rather than later because I'm not quite sure when the app will shut down. Or you could just do it while you're watching this video. Check your rank out, and you could leave a comment below with how you finished off, how many points you got, what rank you got, and you can just check back to this video next season to compare if you want to. But 350th, I had set a target at the start of the season to get inside the top 1k, although I did have that 463rd finish. Didn't really know if I was doing it consistently. I'd quite like to get in a bit of a habit of getting a consistent maybe top 500 finish or top 1k finish. I was thinking at the start of the season, but that target probably wasn't ambitious enough. Talking to a lot of other really good like Dream Team managers on Twitter and on podcasts and stuff like that, everyone sort of, the general feedback was I should be aiming a lot higher than that. So I set my target at 1k to start off with. I think I'm going to maybe set a minimum target next season of top 500 as a bare minimum. Anything can happen though, but if I do top 500 as a bare minimum, and then I think I'll aim for hopefully a new PB, so to beat 350th, then move hopefully nearer to top 100, top 200. I think that will be my target for next season. I then just wanted to share my rank throughout the season. I thought this is quite handy to have a look at, and it would be good if it was a feature on the Sun Dream Team app, but actually I found out this just by looking at my previous episodes. And in the first episode of my podcast, which was Game Week 8, I was 47.5k overall. So not a good rank at all, but it is early doors there. So 47.5k. And then up to Game Week 13, I dropped to 73k as well. So again, not a good place to be overall. But that was pre-World Cup wildcard. Now, I had the World Cup wildcard, and then things got a bit better after that. So Game Week 15, then got to 37.7k. Game Week 20, I got all the way down to 2.9k. I had a really strong 5 weeks there in between, down to 2.9k. 5 weeks after that, in Game Week 25, I got down inside the top 1k for the first time that season, 863rd. 5 game weeks after that, I was back up at 1k, so really did stall between Game Week 25 and Game Week 30. Not much progress at all there. I went down to 1k. But then Game Week 32, 2 weeks after that, I'd halved my rank down to 515th. Game Week 35 then followed with 262nd, which went on to be my best rank of the season. And then, of course, we just mentioned it, Game Week 36, a slight drop to 350th. So, yeah, overall, one thing I took from this, and I'm going to go on to lessons I learned this season, but I think I could have easily got disheartened around the 73k mark. And it's still quite early in the season, 13 game weeks in. Sitting at 73k, and you look online and you look at other people's ranks, and it's easy to just think I'm in a really crap situation here. But I actually want to credit the guys at Dream Team Tonic and Ben as well for sort of telling me this. I went on their podcast right before the World Cup, and I think that's when I was 73k, and they said, don't worry, just keep making good decisions throughout the season, your rank will fall and you will get right up there. So I just sort of kept chipping away at it, and yeah, 63k before the World Cup, down to 350th. I was quite pleased with that, and yeah, it just is a marathon, not a sprint. It's a really long season, and if you do keep making fairly good decisions, you will get right down there. Don't start making wild decisions. I had done that in previous seasons. You panic that your rank's not good. You start picking players that you think are differentials but aren't really that good. and then it just goes from bad to worse. So yeah, credit to the Dream Team Tonic guys and their podcast for that advice, because that really did help out my season. So that was my first lesson learned, really, just that it's a marathon, not a sprint. Keep making good decisions and your rank will gradually improve. Don't start giving up on your team early doors, just because you're not doing well initially. Then another thing that I learned, which you probably saw in the last couple of slides, is probably not to put too much emphasis on the cup final games in future. Both of the cup finals were pretty low scoring games. Obviously Gundogan had a really good FA Cup final. Other than that, there weren't that many points to go around. I would have been much better off just sticking with the usual suspects like Kane. Salah wasn't great, but he was still just as good as or better than Alvarez or Rashford. So chasing the fixtures probably does make quite a lot of sense in normal situations. In those cup final games, they just seem to be really quite tight affairs, and I probably should have made a better call there. And that last game of the season, I really wasn't expecting there so many goals, and for City's final game of the season to be so dead. So yeah, one thing I learned is probably not to put so much emphasis on the final game of the season. Whether or not we do end up seeing a bit of a weird situation like this again, where you had the Premier League games, FA Cup final, Champions League final, Europa League conference final, all bundled into one game week. I'm not so sure, but if we do, I think I probably won't be loading up on City players or whoever makes the final next time. And then my last takeaway of the season is just don't take the game too seriously. And that just sounds ridiculous from someone that has a Dream Team podcast, as someone that posts about Dream Team every day on social media. But don't take it too seriously in the fact that you can enjoy your wins, enjoy when you're doing well, but don't get too down or wound up about it when you're not doing well, because it's a game where you have to pretty much predict the future, predict who's going to do well. And if you could get it right every time, probably wouldn't be that exciting, I don't think. So yeah, just enjoy it. Don't take it too seriously. The thing I love about Dream Team the most is just that it makes every single game that takes place throughout the season a more enjoyable watch, in my opinion. So yeah, just don't take Dream Team too seriously that you stop enjoying football. That's the last takeaway that I would take from Dream Team this season. That is everything for this episode. I know it's been a lot shorter than my usual episodes, but we don't have any players to target. We don't have any fixture grids. I just wanted to round off this season showing you how my best team got on. So I hope you had a really good season. Please do leave a like and subscribe to the channel to get kept up to date with the latest Sun Dream Team content. I am going to be having more videos dropping over the summer and in the build up to the next Dream Team season. And if you are looking for extra content as well, check out the guys at the Dream Team Tonic podcast. Those guys have been a real big help to me throughout the season, and they've got a really good community over there as well. So I'll leave a link to one of their videos here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.